Welcome to Build Your Thing, the podcast where we help content creators find their unique creative voice, build their tribe of loyal fans, and monetize their work. My name is Matt Giaro, and as content creators, we all know the importance of jotting down our ideas. In fact, taking notes is at the core of my content creation process because it allows me to come up with better ideas, create content faster, and find new connections between my ideas to rediscover those that I may have forgotten. And today, I'm talking to the founder of an amazing note-taking app called Reflect. His name is Alex MacCaw. And we're going to dig deeper into how he came up with this note-taking app, what makes it different and special amongst all the other note-taking apps out there, and how you can use it to level up your content creation workflow. So with that being said, let's just jump right into it. All right, Alex, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
We were just, talking about you recording this podcast on a boat, so it's kind of hilarious. So, for people who don't know you, Alex, can you explain us a little bit more about who you are and what you're actually up to?
Sure. So I'm a British entrepreneur. I've been making companies ever since I was a teenager. About 13 years ago, I moved to the States and moved to San Francisco. And I created a few companies there in various different spaces. But now I'm working on something completely different. Now I'm working on something called Reflect, which is a note-taking tool. So it's a B2C product. And it's the first consumer company that I've ever worked on. And we are essentially trying to create a note-taking tool that is beautiful, that really flows and fits in with the way that your brain works. And we can go into more detail into how the brain does recall and association and how we work with that. But that's the gist of it. We've got this note-taking company called Reflect, and the company is about 4 people. It's tiny, and we do all the programming and development ourselves.
Wow, that's awesome. So how did you get the idea of creating a note-taking app?
Well, I just thought there weren't enough note-taking tools out there, and the world needed just another one. You'll notice that there are a lot of note-taking tools out there. And so there's a good question. Why did I want to create a new one? And I think part of it was just scratching my own itch. I came out of a company that I grew to hundreds of people in the B2B space, and I hadn't programmed or engineered for a long time. And I wondered if I could still do it. And so this, for me, this building this company was a form of therapy where I could get back into engineering and coding and designing and all the things that I really love. And so the reason I picked this particular space is very simple. I love writing. And I write to think and I think to write. And where my note-taking tool is probably my most important tool that I'm in all day, every day. And I wanted to create something beautiful that really fit with how my mind worked. And I wanted to create something that was also very simple and that would work for a lot of different people. There's all sorts of different notes apps, and the reason why there are so many different notes apps is because people think very differently. Some people really like configuring plugins, customization, writing CSS, and there's great tools out there for people that like that. I would say what I'm trying to compete with is Apple Notes. So I'm trying to create a very simple tool that kind of augments some of the features of Apple Notes with things that I think help the mind think and the mind work. So that was basically how I came up with the idea. That was a couple of years ago, and I just started coding. I just didn't come out of my room for 6 months of just plugging away, and eventually had something that worked quite well, and released it. This is about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have a couple of thousand paying customers now, and things are going really well. We have a small team on working on it, and we have a budding community, and we built a product that I'm really proud of.
Wow, that's awesome. So what challenges did you face when it comes to note taking, let's say in Apple Notes or in any other kind of note taking app that you were using?
Well, I got to say, note taking tool is, or note taking in general, is deceptively very, very difficult. Like it seems easy, but it's actually an extremely hard computer science problem. And the reason for that is a few different things. Creating a WYSIWYG editor is extremely difficult. If you've talked to any engineer who has worked on that, they'll tell you, this is one of the hardest things they've built. And a WYSIWYG editor is, for some of your listeners who aren't familiar, is basically a text editor where you can bold and italic and do lists and that kind of thing inline. It's, Google Docs is a WYSIWYG editor. So you have end-to-end encryption. That is extremely difficult to do. It's something that we pull off in Reflect. It's something that almost no one else offers because of how difficult it is. But we do end-to-end encryption. So that means no one else can read your notes, not even us. And then offline sync. So we work offline, unlike products like Notion that don't really work offline. We work offline quite fine, and then we will sync when you come back online. The really complicated part of that is merge conflicts. So if you have two notes open at the same time and you edit them at the same time, what do you do? And so we have to solve all of those different problems. We have to make it performant. We have to write clients for mobile and desktop clients. There's a lot to build, but it's also one of the reasons I picked this problem, because I love coding and I love engineering, and so it keeps me busy.
That's interesting. So those were the problems when it comes to actually creating the app, but you as a note-taking user, so what were your problems?
Well, I just felt like the tools out there were just too complicated, basically. Mm-hmm. I really wanted something like, things, the to-do app. Mm-hmm. I really wanted something like that for note-taking. And the Notes app is the closest thing to that, the native Notes app. But it doesn't have some of the features that I really wanted, like backlinking, which we can get into, and why that's important. But it didn't have some of those really core features. So I basically wanted to build a simple tool that had some of those additional features that I think help with recall.
Awesome. So let's just start with links. So please go ahead. So why are backlinks important?
Okay, so if you think about how your memory works, it works through association. So let's just say you've forgotten where your car keys are. You walk around and you try and think about, like, where were you last, and you associate the car keys with some kind of location and some kind of activity that you're doing. And the same goes for not just car keys, but also names, right? You might, if you forget someone's name, you might be like, I remember they worked at this company. And then through that company, you can eventually figure out who they are. Or vice versa, you remember the person in another company. So the way that we work, our memory works, is through association. But a lot of these note-taking tools do not have any idea of association embedded in them. And then Rome Research came along and they took this backlink idea and they popularized it. It wasn't a unique idea, but it wasn't popular. And they had a nice implementation for the time. and they created this backlinking idea. So what is this backlinking idea? So the idea is, let's just say I'm writing a note about someone. When I mention their name in my notes, I can mark up their name such that it's a backlink. And that will essentially link their name to a note dedicated about that person. So if I just want to see all my notes about Matt, then I go to Matt's note, and then I can see incoming links from any other note that I've referenced Matt in. So that basically creates a graph, of notes that are attached to each other, and that really effectively models how the brain's memory works.
Awesome. So, like, most people are certainly familiar with, using tags and using folders. The problem is that this is also something that I tackle in my note-taking course. The link will be in the show notes. Is that like it forces you to classify things, and perhaps can you tackle also the idea collision side of things, which means that when you come up with an idea or with an interesting idea, usually it's like just a combination of ideas, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And I think the key thing around idea entry and note entry is to create a system that is frictionless. Okay. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I don't like about hierarchy is that it introduces friction. So let's just say I want to create a new note called Matt, and using a hierarchical system of organization. At that point, I need to understand, like, where does this go? Does it go under a person folder, under maybe the company that you work for folder, or maybe it's a particular project? And then maybe there is a really logical answer to that and a good place to put that note, but it does take a certain amount of mental overhead. Okay. And I wanted to eliminate that completely. And that is basically what backlinks does, because backlinks auto creates a graph of all these connections without you even having to think about it. It will just create it behind the scenes, and there's no hierarchy. Every node is flat and it's just connected to each other in a form of a graph.
Yeah, and this is something that I'm talking about, and I go on rant when it comes to that. It's really, those kind of micro decisions, or I really call it like the micro decision tyranny. So every time, you want to jot down something, okay, I have to think, okay, where I'm going to put that. And like this haunted me for years when it comes to Evernote and with the folders at the beginning, right? And then I discovered like a whole new world, which was like apps like Bear, where you can just tag. And this was great because I could put like one note into different spaces. But what I didn't understand is that, I was just, kicking the can down the road, which means like I was still classifying, right? And if you go down that rabbit hole of just adding tags and tags and tags and tags, then you just end up with hundreds of tags. And again, like, how do you retrieve the things? Like, you don't have like, the links, a graph view, something that shows you, okay, how are these nodes actually connected? So since you are a thinker, could you walk us behind like your thinking process and how actually Reflect, the app you designed, actually helps you to really think better?
Yeah, well, I would say that it's almost impossible to do thinking in your head. You have so many things going on at the same time, and there's so many distractions. So what I do is I try and take whatever is in my head and try and write about it. And it's a form of journaling. People have been doing this for centuries, right, to try and clear their mind, but it works. So every day in Reflect, there is a new note that's associated with that day. It gets auto-created. So I know automatically where my notes are going to be. They are in the today's note. And then I just get writing. So I, write about my meeting notes. I write about my thoughts. I write about whatever is going on in my life. And then as soon as I see those ideas crystallized on the page, then I can start thinking about them and start iterating on those ideas and actually really get a cohesive look of whatever that thought is so that I can work on it.
If you're listening to this, then you're already probably taking a lot of notes. But let me ask you a question. Are you really satisfied with the amount of content that you're able to create out of your notes? Or do you think that there may be some things to improve and perhaps there may be a better way? If that's you, head over to the first link in the description and you'll get my free 7-day email course that will help you transform and turn your notes into valuable online content. Again, it's the first link in the description, and let's get back to the interview. That's very interesting, and especially like since you're managing a company, which means that you have a lot of things to manage, right? So on one side you have the product development, then you have to manage your team, then perhaps you have ideas, bugs that needs to be fixed. So how do you make sense of all this information? Because especially people who are just getting or just starting out when it comes to backlinks, well, they just freak out because like they're just afraid, okay, like how am I going to make sense of all those notes? They will just, if I use backlinks, then it will just be kind of a huge mess and I won't be able to retrieve everything that I want to retrieve. So what's your take on that?
Well, to reflect coming from the other side where everything is in Apple Notes and it's flat, but there's no backlinking. And so like that is like almost the other side of the equation, So they're quite used to having no structure at all and a kind of a bit of a dumping ground for their nodes. So this backlinks it adds a bit of structure to that. And often it takes a while for them to understand the value of it. It's one of the hardest things about selling Reflect is that the aha moment is often about a couple of weeks in. So we do have a free trial, but often like that aha moment where someone has recalled something from their notes, typically that they did it, much faster than they would otherwise be able to do. That takes a few weeks. And so once someone has experienced that, they're hooked, they're sold, they whether it's Reflect or some other notes app, but they are sold on the idea of backlinks for sure. But it takes a few weeks. But it's tough to get to that aha moment. And it's, it's also not for everyone. Like we all think very differently. It's actually kind of crazy what goes on people's heads. Did you know that a lot of people don't have an internal monologue? And like that is something that I just assumed everyone had, but it depends. Like between 10 and like 20% of people don't have an internal monologue, which is fascinating. So no wonder that people prefer different notes tools when they think so differently internally. And when people ask me like, should I use Reflect or should I use some other note-taking tool? I usually just say, you know what, just give it a try, because it's a very personal thing. If something fits, if something feels good, if there's a bit of software that you just feel at home and you just love to use, and that's a very personal, subjective thing, and you can only really know by testing out a few different options.
That's very interesting. So in your first, I didn't know that there were people who don't have any internal monologue. So this is the first interesting take. And like, what did you discover? What kind of people? Or let me flip it let me flip the question and like this. First, who are the people who could benefit the most of Reflect, and who are the people who won't?
Yeah, well, I would say anyone who's taking a lot of meetings, our users tend to be execs or managers. So, a lot of our customers are the startup founders or CEOs or senior managers. So they're taking meetings every day, often back-to-back meetings, and they need to write notes about those meetings. And Reflect is just a great place to put those notes. So I would say that's like the core people that we target and that find Reflect useful. Who doesn't find it useful? Oh man, I would say that if someone likes Obsidian, typically they're not going to be a good Reflect customer. If someone likes writing in Markdown and they like writing and they like their own plugins and using extensions and they're like spending a lot of time on their note-taking tooling, almost more time actually writing their notes, then they typically are not good fits for Reflect, and they prefer using Obsidian, and that's totally fine. I don't actually even personally view Obsidian as a competitor. Like the type of people that are attracted towards it are just so different from the type of people that are attracted towards Reflect. So like the clear delineation there.
That's very interesting. And perhaps could we dig deeper into, like the differences between Obsidian and Reflect? So I was as I was telling you like before recording, is that right now I'm an Obsidian user. I really had Reflect on my radar for 1 year plus. Right now, digging my toes into it, and I really want to understand like how do you think like those apps are different?
Sure. So Obsidian, for those of your listeners who are not familiar, is an I think it's semi-open source project.
It's free, but it's not open source. Yeah.
Okay, I stand corrected. It's not open source, so you can download it. It's free. It's very minimalistic. So if you like writing Markdown, then you're gonna like it. And for those of you who don't know what Markdown is, it's essentially a type of plain text syntax for marking up documents. So you can specify what is bold and what's italic and so on. But everything is plain text, and it tends to generally more technical people tend to be pushed towards it or prefer it. It's the programmers tend to use it. I've certainly used it in the past, and I don't want to knock it. Some people love it, but if you like writing in Markdown, Obsidian's for you. Obsidian also has an extensive plugin architecture, which is which is great because you can basically customize the flow to however you like, and you can write your own plugins as well, and you can write your own CSS. You can style it as well. They have a sync, as far as I'm aware. I think it uses Apple Sync, which personally I am very bearish about. But they also have a sync system. So that's Obsidian. Reflect is just batteries included. Okay, it's just comes out of the box, ready to go. There's no different styles. You can have any color as long as it's black. It is just the one style. We try and make it look as beautiful as possible. We do sync for you behind the scenes. We've spent a hell of a lot of time tuning our sync engine to make sure that happens flawlessly, and no notes are ever lost. The security comes with it. The end-to-end encryption comes with it. And we have a nice editing interface. So you can just drag and drop images, upload them, bold stuff. We essentially have copied a lot of Google Docs' editing and tried to emulate some of their behaviors around how lists work and that kind of thing. So really, they're very different products. And what I fear most is Apple Notes. I would say Apple Notes. The more I get into note taking, the more impressed I am by that product. And like people will often use Reflect or use Apple Notes, but they won't tend to use both. And I do think it is a true competitor. So, with these note taking tools, you have to plan very carefully. You have to prioritize extremely carefully because there is no features faster than no features, and there's no code faster than no code, right? And what I do not want to end up happening is creating some kind of Frankenstein app that has 1,000 different features that please different people and is slow as hell, right?
Yeah.
So we're constantly thinking about performance, and I want Reflect to be the fastest notes app there is, and which is difficult because we're competing against native and Apple Notes, but we, I think, do a good job. So a lot of our roadmap is around performance and stability and security. There is some new stuff though. We are building a Readwise integration. So for those of you who are not familiar, Readwise is a really excellent tool for highlighting across different books and PDFs, and putting those highlights and bookmarks into whatever other tools you're using. So we had a lot of people ask for a Readwise integration. We built one. We're finally testing it. We have just released our Whisper integration, which lets you take notes by speaking. So just transcription. And Whisper is a new technology created by OpenAI that offers basically human-level accuracy for transcription. Then we are working on little UI improvements, redesigns, fixing things like different swipes on mobile. There's a lot of different things. In fact, we're very open about our roadmap. If you go to roadmap.reflect.app, you will see everything there, and then the community votes on things. And I wouldn't say it's a democracy. We don't build the thing that gets voted up the most, but I would say it definitely increases the likelihood that it's going to get built. If something is really popular, then we will probably build it, but we will think very carefully about how to build that and keep the app fast at the same time.
Yeah, I really like that, because this is, I think, the dilemma of most apps, softwares out there, is like feature creep, right? So they keep adding more things, and then it just distracts you of the main purpose. So one of the things that really drives me crazy, and that I'm constantly, talking about, is like autoresponders, right? So like you reach at a point where you just want to send out a freaking email, but like feature creep and bad UI and UX, you're just here and clicking 500 different buttons just to send out a freaking email, right? So I think that people who have a very low tolerance threshold to stupid user interfaces will really resonate and really appreciate the like your pursuit of really keeping it simple, stable, and fast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. When I started building out Reflect, this is something that was top of mind, and so I actually wrote down our product values, and you can find them on our website. But they essentially list exactly that: speed, stability, security, and less is more. And so we try and view all roadmap and prioritization and features through those lenses, and we make sure that we're addressing those things before building new things.
And that's I think is like, you're certainly making those choices may be hard, right? Because like you have to, like, you can't please everyone, right? So you will have
Right.
Obsidian user who will crave for certain things that you won't implement, because like you have a vision and you want to take, let's say, you want to make just an app that fits your vision, right? So
Right.
and like I know how hard this can be, but I
Yeah.
really, I think that that's just the right thing to do, and this is like just how to you really build an audience and you federate fans around your product. And for like just for being bold on your values, I just want to say congrats on that, and just wishing you all the best for the future.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right. It is difficult. And every day I turn people down, and sometimes I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
I'm basically just trying to build a notes app that is perfect for me. And, not that I have all the answers. When I get new requests, I try and be curious about them. And I try and I see if I can incorporate them into my worldview. But I'm also very stubborn, and I'm building a tool for myself. And luckily, we have found a couple of thousand people out there who are, I guess, similar to me. They think in similar ways, and they appreciate similar designs, and they're our customers. And we just don't need that many of them. We basically need, maybe 3,000 more customers to break even and be profitable. And that is the goal. Like, we do not want to raise venture capital. We have enough money for a couple of years at this point. And our goal is to get profitable within those 2 years. And we will figure out a way of doing that. But the thing that kills these notes apps is when they take venture capital and they grow and they grow and they grow, and they have to have new features, and they have to add a lot of different team features to get the growth they need and the virality. And then they end up building wikis and not note-taking apps.
Yeah.
And so I feel pretty strongly about that I want to keep Reflect small.
I love it. And honestly, like for people who really resonate with what you shared, I think that, at least trying out Reflect after this call will be completely, can actually be a game changer for you, because right now, if you really, resonated with the message that you shared, then how could this app not be for you? So for people who want to try out Reflect, what's the best place that they can go?
If they want to try out Reflect, just go to reflect.app and create an account. We have a free trial for 2 weeks. Test it out, see what you think. My Twitter's also open. I'm at MacCaw, MacCaw. At me feedback, or just send them to my email, and I'll respond. And just give it a shot, see if it works for you. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, no worries. And download the mobile app, and we have a desktop app for Mac OS as well.
Awesome. Anything else that you want to add, Alex, before we wrap up this call?
No, I think that's it. I really thank everyone listening in, and if they've got any feedback or any questions, send them my way.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alex, and wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
All right, so hope that you've enjoyed this episode with Reflect note-taking app founder Alex MacCaw. I really love the vision, and I think that a lot of software companies could actually take example on Alex to stop overloading their products with almost useless features. It's really all about understanding who you're serving and how you can make life better, faster, and easier. As usual, I'm going to leave all the links related to this episode in the show notes. If you want to try Reflect for free, you'll find that there too. And more importantly, what you really want to understand before trying any app out there is really having a rock solid workflow that allows you to turn your notes into valuable online content. So if you want to learn more about that, be also sure to check out the first link in the description. It's a link to my free email course that will allow you to turn your notes into valuable content. Thank you very much for tuning in today, and I see you next week.